Alright, so we are back again for another episode of Usapang Musiko Season 2. So for our first episode, it's going to just be me for something solo. Just want to talk about certain stuffs, about music and everything in between. So first topic for this season is going to be motivation. No? So it's a Monday, and I hope everyone's doing good. It's a good Monday night right now. I hope everyone's doing great, doing well, and I hope, yeah. So first, let's talk about motivation. No, what motivation is for a musician's standpoint. No, so it's like I can compare it to a drug. People see motivation as a fuel to sort of put into their fire or their passions, especially for a lot of musicians. They tend to think that motivation will get them somewhere. But what they don't understand is motivation is more of just an excuse of why you would do a certain thing, right? So, if we talk about motivation in that sense, it's not something that will fuel your fire, but it's more of an excuse for you to do something, diba? So, even without motivation, you should be able to do great things because it's more of an excuse rather than a fuel nga, no? It keeps coming back to that. Because motivation, when you are motivated, you want to do some certain things. But when you're not motivated, it's gonna hold you back from doing those certain things, right? So, what does musicians need is not motivation. What musicians need, in general, everyone needs something to boost their morale or but what's important is discipline and consistency. Okay? So it's the same thing as comparing skills and talent, no? We all say that talent finishes. You can only reach a certain point, a certain level with your talent. And with your skills, developing your skills, you'll be able to one up on other things, no? This doesn't just apply to music in general. No? Because I think we are missing a point as musicians. We always think very creatively, but we miss the point of being objective sometimes, no? Uh we we always associate ourselves as artists, but we tend to forget that we're not just using our mind. We're also using our body in certain ways that not creativity can control. There are things that creativity can't control. No? That's why we always stick with motivation. We tend to forget that we need to practice the motions, the movements, breathing, you know, those little things that add up, the nuances that we already know. We need to practice those things. And motivation can't give you enough of those things, no? It's very objective if we look at it. No? We tend to forget that we're creatives, but we're also performers. The same way athletes perform. Okay? So, if we see athletes having a lot of these regiments going on through their day, through their cycle, before going into games, before going into the stage where they perform, like martial artists or MMA fighters or basketball players. We don't see the work they put in, but we also don't see the work musicians put in, no? But if we only get into the creative side of things, we miss a lot of stuff that are needed for us to improve ourselves because The creativity side comes in a later form or in a latter part of your training. You have to first be um, mastering certain skills in order for you to achieve the creative side of music in general. No? It's like you need to build on certain skills like your intonation, scales, your tone production, long tones. You have to do those things in order for you to be creative enough. Because if you don't, it's like being a painter where you don't have paint. How can you paint something if you don't have the right pigments to use? Diba? It's the same thing. You don't have the skills to do certain things, you won't reach certain levels. So it's important for musicians to not just look at the creative side. You have to be looking both sides of the things that you need to work on, right? And motivation can't make you play scales properly. No. You need discipline and consistency. Okay. It's the same thing as waking up. No? If you want to wake up early, you can wake up early. You just have to set your mind into doing such things that you don't have to force yourself and just say that, oh, I can't do it because I'm not motivated enough. Diba? So, motivation becomes an excuse. Just because you don't feel like you're motivated, you won't do certain things. And that's going to hinder your growth in any field that you go into. Because if you just need that push, no, you have to will yourself into it. You have to force yourself to actually push into doing what you need to do, not what you want to do. Because what motivates you is the things that you want to do, right? But what's important is the things that you need to do in order for you to reach your goals. The goals that you have set for yourself, goals that your teacher has set for you, or whatever. It really depends on what you want to do or what you want to achieve. And if you really, really want to achieve something, you have to go into uncomfortable places for you to understand and achieve those things. Nobody told Kobe Bryant to wake up at 3 a.m. and go practice. No? Nobody told LeBron James to spend $1 million on his body. These are things that we see and we're amazed and shocked. No? But these are things that people go through not because they need to, but because they want to be great. No? It's the same thing with musicians. We tend to think that, oh, he has God-given talents. I can't do that the same way as they can. Because we always try to compare ourselves from other people. And it's giving us less of the drive that we want. Diba? Because you can't be motivated by being envious. So if you want to use motivation in a good way, you have to trick your brain into thinking that, okay, in order for me to achieve this, I need to do that. In order for me to do that, I need to do this. Right? You have to trick your brain into thinking that it's rewarding itself, no? Because sometimes we don't acknowledge the progress that we make. Diba? Sometimes we feel like, oh, yesterday you had a great practice session. Let's say you finish a piece, and then the next day, when you started practicing, you can't play the piece again that as good as you did the other day. So you lose motivation na because I wasted effort. No, it's not like that. Because there will always be ups and downs in your progress. No, it's not always something that goes directly up. Sometimes it goes up, down, up, down. But the thing is, as long as you're consistently working with what you have, As long as you consistently do the small things, it will add up and add up and add up, and you won't notice the difference in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, or maybe in a month, but maybe in a year, while you're still playing the same piece over and over. You can we won't notice it, but you will feel it. No, I'm telling you. I've been through those times where I feel like, okay, I need motivation, but all those times I never needed motivation. I just needed to do my work and just do it without expecting anything in return. And then in the long run, you get what you need. You get what you want. You get what you work for. And that's important, that we have to understand that, okay, a little motivation can be good, but you have to not rely on motivation, because if you rely on it, it expires. Okay, yeah, that's the best word to describe motivation. Motivation expires, and if your motivation expires, who will pick you up? Who will tell you, okay, that you need to do this and you need to do that? No. You have to keep in mind that you're doing this for yourself and not for others. No. Because motivation is an outside force, to say the least. No? It comes from those good things you hear from other people, like, or bad things you hear that they say, oh, he plays like this, or she plays like that. It's not good. So you get to, okay, I need to prove them wrong. No? But no, you don't need to prove anyone wrong. You just need to prove to yourself that you're better than who you were before. And that's something a lot of people take for granted, because all they want to hear is the approval of others. And that's motivating if they like you, and it's gonna demotivate you if they don't like you. No? So you have to love yourself first. You have to like yourself first. You be the one to judge your playing. You be the one to discern, okay, am I good enough? Am I doing it correctly? And then that's the time that you understand yourself better, that you see yourself better, and that you can work on making yourself better. It's hard, no? Because you have to be honest with yourself na, okay, I'm not doing my best right now. Or, I know I can do better. But, how can you do it in a better way? So those are things that you need to accept. You have to accept the fact that you're not doing enough. Because sometimes you are doing too much naman. So there are many sides to this that you need to focus on. It's not always going to be butterflies and rainbows. Diba? Music is something that's very subjective. But the thing nga is, music might be subjective, but the skills you need are not subjective. The way you stroke your paint, or the way you use your bow to be able to play, is subjective. But the skills you need to understand simple strokes, right? Or to understand simple articulation is not subjective. Because these things are exact. We have come to a point where every millimeter of your bow can be measured, no, while you're playing. No, we see a lot of documentaries doing lots of sciencey stuff on music, and we see that everything can be measured. Nga. It's just how you play it, but the skills you need can be trained. No, nobody is perfect, and you have to understand that nobody can play perfectly, no? And that is like, I think you can use that as motivation to be able to grow yourself more, no? As an artist, as a musician. Is to understand that you can commit mistakes and still be good, or you can do something wrong, play wrong notes, but still be good. What's important is you be honest with yourself. No, you don't shortchange yourself. If you need to practice, you practice. If you need a break, you take a break. And if you need help, you ask for help. No? This is also one thing that I see from a lot of musicians na parang they don't ask for enough help. They just think, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good with what I have. So, ayun na. What happens is they miss certain things that, oh, you just need to fix your position on this part of a passage just because you didn't ask help, because you might feel that you're already okay, then you didn't improve enough. Okay, it's one thing to know yourself, and it's one thing to let other people who you trust tell you some things that you might have missed. No, of course you need, no one can live alone. Everyone needs someone, a mentor, a friend who can really help you one up from where you are right now. So it doesn't need to be formal lessons, especially for those musicians that are already, they say, in their prime or already done with school. But learning never stops. So those are things that you need to work on. It's not just getting when someone compliments you. Oh, you did great here. So you stop learning there. No, again, motivation expires, and that's our main uh, statement today. No, motivation expires. So you don't need those nudges. What you need is a mindset that would set you up to get to do great things, because you are a great person. You have to understand that. Okay. So, if you don't need motivation, what do you need? Yeah. How can you apply those things? How can you be disciplined enough? How can you motivate motivate yourself? How can you do that? You have to will yourself. Okay? It needs to come to a point where your practice becomes routine. Of course, we're developing certain muscles. Okay, as musicians, as string players, as violinists, or even as wind players or whatever instrument you're playing, there are certain movements, certain motions that you need to understand in order to be playing. No, you breathe differently, you move differently. There are certain joints you thought you never moved that are moving when you're playing, especially for string players, because we're really moving our body a lot. No, you try to uh, understand your body more, and of course, if you don't train these motions, these movements, because whoever walks around like this, tell me, they walk around your house looking like this, holding up your hand, your left hand, and moving your right hand? No one. So you really need to train yourself. You have to reach a certain point where holding your bow for violinists or string players in general would be like holding a pen. Or holding your violin would be like holding your spoon and fork when you're eating. So it needs to come to that natural point or natural state in order for you to really consider yourself mastering something, right? You can't just hold your instrument 5 minutes a day and then call it that, oh, I'm getting good. I'm getting to where I need to be. No. But again, time is not something that can justify how good you can be. No? It's quality of the time that you spend. You can be spending 8 hours a day practicing, but mindlessly practicing, or you can just spend 2-3 hours a day mindfully practicing. So those things will differ. The time you spend will be different, but the quality that you will gain from those time spent would be quite different. See? You have to understand that. The main goal of being a musician is not to be better than somebody else, to be bigger than someone else. The main goal of a musician is to play with intention and to be motivated enough to play is not enough because again, you just have to be better than yourself. And how can you be better than yourself if you need external impulses or external signals for you to do something that's not for them but for you, diba? If we let external impulses dictate the way we practice, dictate the way we play, you're not going to be fulfilled, you're not going to be satisfied because why? It's your happiness or your fulfillment will always be decided by the people around you. But what is important is that you are happy with what you're doing. You're fulfilling yourself. And then if people see that, maybe they would appreciate you more. They would appreciate the things that you do. But don't think of them first because your approval of yourself is more important. You'll just get burned out. Maybe those are the things why people get burned out because they think motivation is their fuel. Second, they think that if they're not given the praise that they need or the nudge that they need, they won't be able to perform well. So they get burned out because they lack those things. They lack the assurance of people, they lack the praises of people. And they're not really getting happier because if you listen to all external impulses or signs, you just get stressed out because you can't control these things. You can't mind things that you can't control. Because if you do, you're just gonna be left out because you're not listening to yourself. Okay? So these things are really, really important as musicians, no? Especially in this time that we're not really playing. So you can easily be bored doing nothing, no? Then you say, I lack motivation to practice. So what can you do? What can you do? Aside from just discipline and do you call this? Consistency. So take small steps, especially if you stop because of what's happening. Take small steps. Develop certain habits. How? Start by playing 10 minutes a day. Just play tunes you love. Okay? And then as you play, from 10 minutes becomes 20 minutes. 20 minutes becomes 30 minutes. And then you start building back again those strengths. And then you'll realize that there are certain things you may have missed. No? You just need to be more and more observant of yourself. No? You just have to look at yourself. Of course, I'm not saying I'm always productive in practicing during these trying times. No? What I'm trying to say is that you need to look at yourself again, assess yourself, and then work from there. What you have right now, what you don't have, what you lack. That's what you work on. Okay. You need to be uncomfortable in order for you to grow. The time that we have right now is very, very crucial in what will happen after all these are done. So you have to work on yourself, and by working on yourself, you'll get a bigger, better understanding of what's happening in your playing, right? And of course, I will always say that as musicians, we need to be human. Human in a way that we understand ourselves, we understand the experiences, and we can translate these experiences that we have to our music. We can only do that by practicing, of course. What else can we do? No? we can't be better than. Okay, maybe we can mental practice, but how long can you stand without playing your instrument, diba? You can mental practice for how long lang. And then you also lose a little bit of dexterity from your fingers if you don't practice. Diba? Heifetz nga said, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but it's like, if you don't practice a day, you will notice. And if you don't practice a week, the audience will notice. If you don't practice in a month, like that, the whole world will know. So, of course, you still need to practice. And again, don't get external validation for your motivation, because motivation expires. Well, I guess that's where I will end this video or this podcast. You can also follow this podcast on anchor.fm, and we'll be streaming this on major podcast platforms including Spotify and Apple Music. So if you have any more questions, let's entertain a few questions if you want to ask something about motivation and why it's not healthy. What can you say? Okay. I guess I'll end this right now, no? Thanks for joining in Usapang Musiko Season 2 Episode 1. We'll be doing more podcasts in the coming days, and I'll try to get guests again, but right now I'm doing solo stuff, and I just want to share my thoughts with you, and let's talk about it on the comment section if you want to. And please do follow me on my socials, links down in the description. And I'll see you very, very soon. Of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more tutorials, tips, tricks, and other things, covers, collabs with other people. You know where to find me. I'm Ryan Monakil. This has been Usapang Musiko. And I'll see you soon.